Flesh sizzled and bones snapped as Rizian death rays sliced through alien soldiers like hot knives through butter, but the human troops just kept coming, charging forward, with bullets spraying from their rifles. It had been only 52 hours since the sadistic Rizian Empire invaded Earth, and already half the planet was a scorched ruin. Rizian forces were armed with genocidal radiation cannons, weapons that fried the nervous systems of every known alien species, except apparently humans. Humanity's conventional armies had been decimated in a matter of hours, but small bands of human survivors still fought, waging a desperate guerrilla war amidst the ashes of their civilization. Captain David Reed of the Interstellar Defense Force slammed a fist on the briefing room table. He was a hardened veteran, but the rage and grief in his eyes spoke volumes. Humanity was on the edge of total annihilation. Over 4 billion people were already dead. "Reed, you're our last hope," General Thaddeus Graves said, his voice shaking. "This is a fucking Hail Mary, but it's all we've got. The eggheads detected a lone Rizian shuttle landing in Detroit. We believe a high-level Rizian scientist named Dr. Lyra Zor was on board. She's the twisted bitch who invented their radiation cannons. You need to capture her, alive. Make that alien scum tell us how to stop their weapons. You have 24 hours before the Rizians wipe out every last man, woman, and child on Earth. Get it done or we all die. Humanity is finished." Reed gave a grim nod, the weight of the world on his shoulders. One final mission, capture the Rizian scientist, and maybe, just maybe, humanity could survive this hell. He grabbed his rifle and headed for the armory. It was time to move. Reed strode into the armory, purpose in every step. He had a team to assemble and a world to save. "Maverick, Liv, Tech, you're with me," he barked. "We've got one shot at this. Time to gear up." Lieutenant Marcus Reyes, callsign Maverick, looked up from cleaning his rifle. The man was a crack shot and the best pilot Reed had ever served with. "Ready when you are, Cap." Sergeant Olivia Tanner, the team's medic, nodded grimly as she packed her medkit. She specialized in alien biology. Reed hoped her skills wouldn't be needed, but was glad to have her. Corporal Ethan Novak, their resident tech genius, cracked his knuckles. "Let's fry these alien bastards." As they armed up, Reed's comms crackled. It was Graves, his voice tight. "Change of plans. Those Rizian fucks have civilians locked up in a prison near the target site. I'm making it a secondary objective to get those people out." Reed's blood boiled at the thought of more innocent lives in danger. "Understood, we'll bring them home." His team exchanged determined looks. No one was getting left behind. They boarded the CX-91, a sleek alien ship Reed had stolen a few ops back. Tech whistled appreciatively as he powered up the cloaking drive. "Damn, I'll never get tired of this beauty." Reed gripped the armrests as Maverick took them up, the stealth systems masking their signature. They shot over the ruined cityscape, Rizian destroyers looming in the smoky sky. Reed's trigger finger twitched. The ship shuddered as they landed, a quarter click from the prison complex. Reed motioned his team forward, scanning for threats. The air was thick with the stench of death and burnt metal. A burst of plasma seared past Reed's helmet. "Contact left," Liv yelled, diving for cover. Reed swung around and opened fire, bullets pinging off the Rizian's armor. The alien soldiers advanced, death rays flashing. But instead of burning flesh, Reed just felt a weird tingling sensation. The team unleashed hell, alien blood spraying as the Rizians fell. A lone Rizian remained standing, his armor more ornate than the others. He snarled in broken English, "Primitive scum, you cannot hope to—" Reed put a bullet between his eyes before he could finish. They zip-tied the Rizian officer's corpse. Dog tags read Commander Coda Vex. Reed slapped the alien's face. "Wake up, Sunshine. You're going to tell us what we need to know." Vex spat blood, eyes wide with disbelief and rage. The arrogant fuck couldn't believe mere humans had captured him. After a little persuasion, Vex coughed up intel on the prison layout and the location of this Dr. Zor's research facility. Reed smiled coldly. Now they were getting somewhere. Reed shouldered his rifle and motioned to his team. "Let's move, we've got civilians to rescue, and a genocidal maniac to capture, and we're just getting started. Armed with the intel from their Rizian captive, Reed led his team through a maze of underground tunnels, snaking beneath the prison complex. The air grew thick and damp as they pushed deeper, boots splashing in puddles of stagnant water. Tech's handheld scanner beeped urgently, indicating they were close to the holding cells. As they emerged into a dimly lit corridor, the team froze at the sight before them. Human prisoners were strapped to gurneys, their screams echoing off the metal walls as Rizian scientists subjected them to excruciating experiments. Reed's blood boiled at the sight of his people being tortured. "You sick fucks," he growled, leveling his rifle at the nearest Rizian. "Step away from them, now." Among the prisoners, one woman caught Reed's eye. Her face was bruised and her lab coat tattered, but he recognized her immediately, Dr. Elizabeth Carlyle, a brilliant geneticist who had vanished months ago. He rushed to her side, quickly undoing her restraints. "Captain Reed," she gasped, her voice hoarse, "I knew someone would come." "What have they done to you?" Reed asked, his jaw clenched. Dr. Carlyle shook her head. "They wanted me to study the human genome, to find out why we're immune to their weapons, but I've been sabotaging their research, giving them false leads. I couldn't let them use my work to harm more innocent people." Reed nodded grimly. "You're a hero, Doc. We're getting you out of here along with the other prisoners. Can you help us navigate this hellhole?" "Of course," Dr. Carlyle replied, determination shining in her eyes. "I've memorized the layout, and I have information about their lead scientist, Dr. Zor. Her research facility is—" A barrage of plasma fire cut her off as a group of heavily armed Rizian guards stormed into the room, led by a hulking alien with a cruel sneer. "I am Warden Zaron Thule," he snarled, "and you, human filth, have made a grave mistake." Reed and his team took cover behind the overturned gurneys, trading fire with the Rizians, but their bullets seemed to bounce harmlessly off the alien's advanced armor. "Fuck this," Maverick growled. "Time to get up close and personal." He charged forward, dodging plasma blasts as he closed the distance. Reed and the others followed suit, engaging the Rizians in brutal hand-to-hand combat. They used their immunity to their advantage, shrugging off the searing heat of the aliens' weapons as they fought. Maverick grappled with Warden Thule, their limbs a blur of motion, but the Rizian was too strong, too fast. With a sickening crunch, Thule slammed Maverick into the wall, his body going limp. "No!" Liv screamed, rushing to Maverick's side. She cradled his head in her lap, frantically checking his vitals as plasma fire rained down around them. Meanwhile, Tech's fingers flew across his wrist-mounted computer. "I'm in their system," he called out. "Disabling energy shields, now!" The Rizians' protective barriers flickered and died, leaving them vulnerable. The human prisoners, seeing their chance, surged forward, overpowering their captors with sheer numbers and desperation. As the dust settled, Reed knelt beside Liv and Maverick. "How is he?" Liv looked up, her face streaked with sweat and blood. "He's stable for now, but we need to get him out of here, get him proper medical attention." Reed nodded, his mind racing. They had the prisoners, they had Dr. Carlyle and her intel, but the mission was far from over. They still needed to infiltrate Dr. Zor's facility and capture the mastermind behind the Rizians' genocidal weapons. He turned to his team, his voice low and urgent. "All right, listen up. We're getting these people to safety, then we're going after Zor. Tech, see if you can pull any more information from their systems. Liv, do what you can for Maverick. We move out in 5. As the others scrambled to follow his orders, Reed looked down at Maverick's unconscious form, a knot forming in his stomach. They were battered, bruised, but still standing, still fighting. And they wouldn't stop until every last Rizian invader was dead or captured, until Earth was safe once more, no matter the cost. In the ruins of the prison complex, Reed huddled with his team and the freed captives, formulating a daring plan to breach Dr. Zor's stronghold. Dr. Carlyle's knowledge proved invaluable as she sketched out the facility's layout, marking security checkpoints and potential entry points. "There's a service tunnel here," she pointed, her finger tracing a faint line. Lightly guarded, but it'll get you close to the main lab. Tech nodded, already working on his handheld. I can spoof their security protocols, make it look like you belong, but you'll need disguises. Reed turned to the prisoners. We need your clothes and ID badges. It's the only way we can blend in. They quickly stripped the fallen Rizian guards, donning their uniforms and tech. Liv helped apply alien cosmetics to complete the illusion. In minutes, Reed and his team were indistinguishable from the Rizian scientists that stalked the facility's halls. Hearts pounding, they approached the entrance, Tech's hacked credentials granting them access. The sterile white corridors stretched endlessly, the team's footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. Reed's trigger finger twitched, ready for any hint of trouble. As they descended into the bowels of the facility, the true horror of the Rizians' experiments came into focus. Behind reinforced glass, human captives writhed in agony, subjected to unimaginable tortures. Vials of blood and tissue samples lined the walls, meticulously labeled. But it wasn't just humans. Reed's stomach turned as they passed chamber after chamber, each containing the twisted remains of alien species. Some he recognized from Alliance intel briefings, others were unknown, lost to the Rizians' insatiable hunger for conquest. Liv paused before a particularly gruesome display, her face pale. My God, if I had the scale of it, they've been doing this for decades. With shaking hands, she retrieved a data drive from her kit and began downloading the grim evidence. Reed knew the Alliance needed to see this, to understand the true face of their enemy. Deep in the heart of the facility, they finally reached their target. Dr. Lyra Zor stood hunched over a console, her features bathed in sickly green light. She spun to face them, eyes widening in recognition and fear. How did you get in here? What do you want? Her voice shook, but there was a hint of defiance. Reed leveled his rifle. Dr. Zor, you're coming with us. We know about your weapons, what they do to the aliens you conquer. To his surprise, Zor laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You think I wanted this? Any of this? She gestured to the horror around them. I was trying to find a way to counter the effects, to spare the innocent, but they twisted my work, made it into a tool for genocide. Her shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. Reed hesitated, torn between his mission and a flicker of sympathy. Help us then. Come back with us, share what you know. We can end this together. Zor met his gaze, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Yes, I'll help. I have the research here, everything you need to stop them. She reached for a data card, but froze as a voice boomed across the lab. Step away from the human scum, Doctor. Commander Vex strode into view, flanked by a phalanx of elite soldiers. His face was a mask of rage and disgust. I should have killed you when I had the chance, he snarled at Reed. No matter, I'll rectify that mistake now. The Rizians fanned out, plasma rifles aimed squarely at Reed's team. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Reed glanced at Liv and Tech, saw the resolve in their eyes. They knew the odds, knew this could be their last stand, but they wouldn't go down without a fight. He turned back to Vex, a cold smile on his lips. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing about you. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as both sides opened fire. Reed dove behind a console, dragging Zor down with him. The doctor clutched the data card to her chest like a talisman. Tech and Liv laid down covering fire, their aim true. Rizian soldiers crumpled, but more surged forward, heedless of their losses. The lab equipment shattered under the onslaught, shards of glass and metal filling the air. Reed popped up to take a shot, but a plasma bolt clipped his shoulder, sending him spinning. He gritted his teeth against the pain, feeling the flesh blister and char. Across the room, Vex laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. You're only delaying the inevitable, human. This facility is mine, and soon your whole pathetic species will be nothing but a memory. As if to punctuate his words, a stray plasma bolt struck a vital piece of equipment. Alarms blared as the lab's systems went critical, the structural integrity failing. Reed hauled himself upright, his mind racing. They had Zor and her research, but they were cut off, outnumbered. The facility was coming down around them. He had to make a choice. His gaze fell on his team, his friends, then on the terrified faces of the human captives they'd freed. He knew what he had to do. Reed made his choice in a split second. The lives of his team and the captured prisoners had to come first. There would be time to mourn later, if any of them survived this hell. "Tech, download everything you can from Zor's system," Reed ordered as plasma fire streaked overhead. "We need that research." Tech nodded, fingers flying across the console. Liv and the others formed a protective circle around the freed prisoners, guns blazing. In the heart of the chaos, Dr. Zor screamed. Reed spun to see Vex standing over her crumpled form, a smoking hole in her chest. The Rizian commander laughed, cruel and vicious. With her last breath, Zor pressed a data drive into Reed's hand. "Take it," she gasped. "It's the key to everything." Reed closed his fist around the drive as Zor went limp, her eyes staring sightlessly. Explosions rocked the lab, cracks spider-webbing across the ceiling. "We have to move now," Reed roared. They fought their way through the crumbling corridors, the prisoners clinging to each other in terror. Maverick stumbled, still weak from his wounds, but pushed on with gritted teeth. At a junction, Maverick paused. Rizian troops were closing in from all sides. He met Reed's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. "Get them out," Maverick said. "I'll buy you some time." Reed clasped his friend's shoulder. "Give 'em hell, brother." As Reed led the others to safety, a massive explosion shook the facility. He didn't look back, couldn't bear to see the fiery tomb Maverick had made for himself and a dozen Rizian bastards. They burst from the collapsing structure into a war zone. Soldiers and scientists fled in all directions as the earth heaved beneath their feet. A shadow fell over them. Reed looked up to see a massive Rizian warship looming overhead, its weapons glowing with deadly intent. Reed braced for oblivion, but it never came. A barrage of missiles slammed into the warship's hull, and a cheer went up from the humans. Reinforcements had arrived, a fleet of Earthships led by the ISS Retribution, Graves's flagship. The space above the planet erupted into a fierce battle as human and Rizian vessels clashed. In the confusion, Reed spotted a Rizian shuttle, damaged but operational. "There's our ride out," he called, herding the prisoners aboard. As they rocketed away from the surface, Reed watched Earth's ships dwindle, many vanishing in brilliant flashes as the Rizian's superior firepower took its toll. The Retribution was the last to fall, a hole punched clean through its bridge. Reed thought of Graves, of Maverick, of the millions dead in this war. Rage and grief warred within him. Back on Earth, the data drive yielded its secrets. Zor's research was the key to countering the Rizians' weapons, a chance to rally the other spacefaring races and fight back. But the price had been so high. Reed stood before a sea of mourners, medals heavy on his chest. Liv and Tech flanked him, their faces etched with the same pain he felt. The war was far from over, but as Reed looked out at the gathered survivors, human and alien alike, he saw a flicker of hope amidst the sorrow. They would fight on, for those they had lost and for those who still lived. The Rizian Empire would learn that humanity, for all its flaws, would never surrender. Reed turned to his remaining team, his friends, his family. "All right," he said, his voice raw but strong. "We've got work to do." You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.